Hello, everyone. Welcome to Demystifying Gay Porn. My name is Ike Grande, and if you watch gay porn, I've definitely helped you get off. And you will remember my guest this week from last year's podcast, Alessio Vega, who is a internationally known porn star at this point.
Thank
really,
you.
really big.
Thank you for that.
You are by far one of the best bottom models I have worked with.
You think? Oh my God,
Absolutely.
that's such a good compliment. Thank you. That's such a huge compliment.
I'm curious. How many studios have you worked with?
Oh God, I've lost count. I mean,
Okay.
it's been a few.
So you've been around.
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
good.
For sure, I've been around. I mean, not. And this is something that I wanted to talk to you about. I
Mhm.
believe I kind of have a hard time sometimes believing that I'm like, that internationally known or Alessio Vega in a way. Because my career in a way has been kind of like up and down in terms of me like giving 100%,
Mhm.
because the intention was never really to become a star, Like this was just something that I started because I saw the potential of it, and things just started kind of like unfolding, But I was never really seeking fame or rename or anything, I'm like, if it happens, it happens, But yeah, I guess things just started happening slowly, but I don't know. I'm still sometimes surprised by that title. I'm like, really?
It's funny you say that because we hang out here,
Mhm.
we shoot, we get together, we text, we do all this stuff, and I forget how much, or I forget what we do outside of what we do.
Yeah.
Because when you walk around, I'm sure people recognize you now.
Yes, and that's the funny part. Sometimes I'm, out with friends and something, and somebody will approach me as like, "Oh my God, Alessio Vega, I love your work," and I'm like, "Thank you so much." Or sometimes they want to take a picture.
Yeah.
So that part still surprises me, because I'm, I don't know. I don't like to think of myself as, oh, I'm this, superstar, porn star. I don't see myself that way. And I don't know, sometimes it's just a little like, really? You know who I am?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, I guess what's difficult for me to understand that is that I've kind of like, particularly for the past 2 years, I've been so like in and out of porn, and not purposefully, just like, well, either I had another job at at that moment, or I was also taking care of my mental health, for this past 2 years. So involuntarily, in a way, I've always been kind of like in and out, So I feel that that's how people know me. It's like, I think I know who you are, but I don't know who you are. You know what I mean?
You got that face.
Yeah.
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 And then when they do realize, they're like, oh, wait.
Yes. Just
I
like,
know
oh, wait a minute, I know exactly who you are. Yeah, but the people that recognize me, I feel very humbled, and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing that you know my name.
Does it usually happen in situations that are not, like, for instance, I know we had spoke about it in the last episode where the cruise.
Oh, yeah.
Some people recognized you at the cruise.
Yeah, usually it happens more in gay settings, like when I'm at the bar with friends or like at a party. People would recognize me there,
Yeah.
And but yeah, it hasn't happened yet in settings that I'm like, oh my God, like how,
Yeah.
But yeah, it happens more in, obviously, in gay settings.
How have you been since we've last spoken? I know you said a little bit about, you mentioned quickly mental health,
Yeah.
getting right.
Yeah.
What has led you into that direction?
Oh God, it's been a very, very tough 2 years. It's been very tough since 2020, obviously. I mean, for everybody, 2020 was rough, but for me particularly, it was really rough. Me and my husband are no longer together. That's probably like the main thing, that has been really affected my mental health and kind of like shook my world, and I had really no clue where to take myself from there,
Yeah.
So that is probably like the biggest, thing that happened to me this past year, but been kind of like bringing on since 2020. I mean, in our last interview, I still talked about him and acknowledged him, and I still had my wedding band on, and but we were in rocky waters since 2020.
So you already knew something was.
I never really knew what was going on until after the breakup. But it was hard. I remember in 2020 we were just having a rough time. We were constantly fighting um, about the most littlest things, and then I started noticing things that were like happening in the background, and then I was getting like all flustered. Um, and before I continue, I want to tell you, and I guess what I'm about to share with you is not with the intention to rant or like gossip or put myself in a victim mode, because that's not really my purpose or my focus. Um, I feel that by being vulnerable and sharing my experience with you and your audience, I feel it's been very healing for me to do that, because I felt that I had to stay silent for so long, since this was going on, and out of shame, I kept everything to myself. I isolated myself. I did not talk to friends when literally shit was going down, I literally just encapsulated myself in my problems, I had no one to talk to. At least I didn't feel I could. So out of shame, I just kept everything to myself. And now, also through therapy and just talking about my experience, it's been very healing to do so. So hopefully, you and your audience understands that I'm just doing this I'm being vulnerable, with you.
I know that there are a lot of porn models, porn stars, content creators who have significant others who are not involved in the industry per se.
Mm-hmm.
Your husband at the time was not necessarily involved.
Yeah, correct. Obviously, I started this career because I had his full-on support, 100%. And, people could go, well, of course, it was very difficult because how do you manage a relationship with a porn star, But I had his support 100%, and we filmed a few fan content videos, ourselves and with other people as well. So he kind of like had a foot in, but not necessarily as, with studios or like an international porn star. But he was okay appearing in videos whenever he wanted to, and whenever he felt comfortable, we would do videos together.
Outside of that, outside of doing a couple of videos together, is it difficult to navigate a relationship with somebody who knows that you are an adult entertainer?
Of course.
I see relationships, I see thruples, I see all this stuff. And every time I see it, I'm always very cautious because I'm like, well, these people are going head in.
Of course.
And a lot of times it just doesn't, when you love too hard, it can break your heart very hard.
Of course. Yeah. And I can understand that probably might have been the toughest part for him to handle, but there were many elements. I mean, we are also outside of porn. We both are performers, and we would travel constantly as well for work. I was in cruise ships. He was touring the United States with shows, so we were always constantly apart in a way. I liked to believe that we had very good communication, but obviously that kind of, took a toll eventually in our relationship, because there were so many periods of time that we were apart, that I feel that the connection eventually lost itself, And then when we went into lockdown in 2020, and when a lot of problems started, coming to the surface, I was in a complete different mindset that he was. I was happy to be home. And, after traveling so long, all over the world, and I was finally happy to be home. And there was a pandemic in the middle, and nobody was doing anything. Like, the entire world was shut down, But I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm home. I'm with my husband. And for him, it was a complete opposite. His world, was completely coming to an end because, oh my God, it's like my job ended and I'm like, I'm here stuck in this apartment and I don't know what to do and there's no work and, the stresses that everybody went through, in 2020. But now that some time, went by and now I know the real cause of why was he Why was he acting that way? Now I'm like, oh, it makes sense why your world crumbled because
If you want to get into it, we can.
We'll, sure, we'll get into those details, but eventually I found out that my husband was having an affair with somebody that he met from work, you know?
Before we get into that, too, 4 people, because I know they're out there, 4 people who will say to you, well, he was having an affair, but you are an adult entertainer.
Of course, you're a porn star that's taking loads, you know, every single fucking day. Of course.
For that, I just wanted to point that out just so...
Yeah. I mean, I can acknowledge, you know, that's difficult, you know, to navigate, you know, of course. But for me, it was very easy, and I guess this is just personality-wise or who I am as a person, to separate sex from an emotional connection with somebody else, you know, because my ex-partner and I, we had an open relationship, you know, and for me, it was just whatever you want to do, you know, do it, just include me in your adventures, you know, even if we're apart and we can't be together physically, just let me know what you do with people, you know, and I would respect that part of our open relationship. I would always tell him what would happen, you know, behind the scenes or with so-and-so. Like, I would keep that open communication with him, you know? So yeah, we had this open relationship. I'm like, who am I, you know, to keep you from having your flings and stuff, you know, with other people, if I'm here, obviously doing it professionally in front of the camera as well, you know? But for me, it was very easy to separate the emotional aspect of that than in doing it for work. You know, for me, it was very clear. Everybody in the industry obviously knew that I was married, you know. That was my way of acknowledging him and making him part of my career. I would wear my wedding band every single time I could, you know, in scenes. I mean, obviously we recorded videos together. I mean, everybody knew, you know, as a couple. So that was my way of honoring him, you know, in this career. Is like, I know we can't share this because you're not a porn star, but this is my way of letting you know you're important in my life, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to know that obviously I'm married and I'll put on my wedding band. And so that was my way of putting it.
There was an understanding, there was communication.
Yes.
Right? And trust, as would be good in any open relationship.
Correct.
Where this kind of broke down was the lack of communication that you were saying, right? While you guys were traveling too much.
Correct.
And then also, now you have, if he had an affair, to you, is that affair an emotional affair? And is that worse than a physical affair?
An emotional affair is by far the hardest for me, you know? I guess for anyone, because you're basically falling out of love from your partner, you know, and like giving somebody else a chance. And I've never been on that side of the table ever in my adult life, you know. Whenever I've had a partner or a significant other, it's never been in my nature to be like, but what if there's something else, you know? And even if I came across people that I'm like, something might, you know, open up here if I keep having communication with you, I would know exactly how to, you know, cut that door, you know? And so for me, it was always very easy to put limits to people, because I'm like, if I do this, if I go out with you for dinner, if I spend the night, if we go out and watch a movie, I know that this is opening doors that will lead to something else.
That can develop into feelings.
Correct. Because especially for gay men, you know, for most gay men, it's very easy for us to have casual sex and not have feelings, you know? At least that's my case. But to create an emotional connection with somebody, that is more difficult. And there's a lot of steps in between that need to happen in order for you to be like, oh my God, I think I have feelings for you, you know? Because we don't develop feelings just by fucking one time with somebody.
It's interesting you say that, because I've met escorts
Mm-hmm.
who have clients who want the boyfriend experience,
Mm-hmm.
and they say that that's the toughest part of their job is to
Oh,
have
yeah.
to make believe to be someone's boyfriend.
Correct. 100%.
So I can see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, and now and looking back, obviously it made sense because he was obviously on tour with this person and living a life in a way with this person, when I was not there, obviously. So I can understand that part of when they both eventually, made a connection and they were like, oh my God, I think I have feelings for you, so I can understand that. Um, that was difficult and that happened,
Yeah.
And I remember at the beginning I started seeing like some signs, and I remember I asked him directly, because I started seeing a lot of photos of them together, and he was just like, "Oh no, nothing's happening.
Okay.
He has a fiance. He's engaged. Everything is fine." And I'm like, oh, "Okay,
So it was
perfect."
denied.
Correct.
I was
So
going to ask if it was
yeah.
kept secret, but if it's
Yeah, no. So I trusted him when I started seeing those things, but it was denied. And in many other occasions, I brought it up again, but it was always denied, obviously. So yeah, I hadn't like my suspicions at the very beginning, but nothing really. Like I just trusted him.
Mhm.
I trusted him. Yeah.
Do you keep up with him now? How long were you married?
We've been together for 6 years.
Okay.
And married for 3.
So 6 altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we did not end up in very good terms. Uh, Basically, the entire lockdown in 2020 was. This is the part that I acknowledge, in my wrongdoings in the relationship. I started turning into this monster, I called it, because there was a lack of many things which were, now that I see as flags, it's like your relationship is crumbling and it's about to end. There was a lot of lack of intimacy, which he also pointed out, obviously a lack of sex. And at the beginning, I was aware of that, but I didn't know how to handle it, if it makes any sense. It wasn't after years of being in therapy that I'm like, oh, that's why I was reacting that way. Because for me, intimacy and sex are completely different things, And I remember one of our main things, or one of our main fights in lockdown is I always was the one to initiate some sort of physical contact, like touching his hand, caressing him, cuddling, waking up and like, turning over the bed and like good morning and kiss him. And eventually that from his part started fading away to the point where I remember thinking to myself, I feel very uncomfortable being around him because every single time I try to cuddle him at nights, he just like, pushes me over, or it's like I'm too warm, or like I didn't even want to touch him because I felt that it made him uncomfortable,
Yeah.
So to the point where there were so many nights that I'm like, you know what, I'm just not going to initiate anything and see if anything happens or changes or if he initiates things,
And did he?
It never did.
Never.
There were so many nights where I just like, turned over my bed and I was just like looking at the window and waiting for like a hug or a cuddle, and it just never happened.
Did you ever think, I mean, I know stuff goes through your head in those moments, but did you think like, okay, well, there's something wrong here?
I thought there was something wrong, and I thought I was doing the right thing by externalizing my anger and resentment at him, and being, because I remember when I finally acknowledged that like something's wrong because you're just not touching me or anything. One of our main discussions, I remember I was just screaming at him. It's like, I need affection. I need affection. Because I feel that I'm always the one who's initiating contact, a caress, holding your leg, cuddles, and you're just like rejecting me, And obviously, you know, that brought up a lot of stuff, and it triggered him, and that was the cause of like many fights, obviously. But in a way, uh, I was kind of like gaslighted to believe that I was just like the issue, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, I remember this one night where he was just like, I'm going out for a run. It was like 8:30 p.m. And he has never been the running type, ever. So it obviously came to me to a surprise, still in the middle of lockdown. I'm like, why are you going out for a run at 8:30 p.m.? Well, why can't I go out for a run? And I'm like, well, because you're never out for a run. And I have all reasons to believe something's going on because you've done this and this and this and this in the past. And I thought that I was doing my, you know, my work by saying, I'm angry because of all of this. How do we handle it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Up front.
That was definitely my approach, and now I acknowledge that it was probably not the best, but I thought at the moment that I'm telling you I'm angry because of all of these things that you've done in the past. So I have every right to believe that you're going out for a run, it's because of something else.
Yeah, I would take that approach too. I come from the school of you lay it all out,
Correct.
you know why I'm mad, and then after that you can kind of get over it.
Correct.
So he wasn't going for a run.
No, eventually I found out that he was going for like 3-4 hour runs to meet up with this guy. And I later on, you know, found out through friends that would text me, I saw your husband with so-and-so. Are you guys okay? I saw photos of them, of this guy in our neighborhood in Long Island City. And I'm like, what is he doing in Long Island City? And it was around that time where my husband was going out for runs, you know, and he would come back home and like he would not even be sweating, you know. And so it was just very weird. But, you know, after that fight, he got extremely angry and obviously attacked me. It's like, how dare you think that I'm like seeing another man or another person in the middle of the pandemic? I just want to go out for a run. You wouldn't even let me do that. So it got like turned into me, and then I felt extremely guilty, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, of course, I was like, go out for runs, you know, take all of your time. So like I did not even question if it was 4 or 3 hours, you know, because I was felt guilty, you know. So eventually when that happened, there was still a lot of fights going on until he reached his breaking point. And he was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And then I went into fighting mode, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we can't just let this end. And then I sought couples therapy and found a counselor for us. And we only had 4 sessions together. Like after the 4th session, he was just like, I can't do this. In front of our therapist, he was just like, I just want, you know, Alessio to let me go.
But all the while not telling you that there was somebody else.
Correct.
In the picture.
Correct. I was never told.
So he let you go through
it was
the therapy process, and not to say
correct.
I'm not trying to pass judgment, but it's kind of dick to.
Well, it was very tough because I remember when he had this breakdown, he left our apartment because he needed time to reflect what he wanted to do or what he wanted in his life. And it was a very painful moment in the summer of 2020 for me because I almost took my own life away because of that. And I remember flying back home with friends and family because that's where literally all of my support system was. And I remember talking to them, I just literally have no clue why this is happening. Like I can't tell you a specific thing or pinpoint, this is why we're breaking up or this is why we're having problems. I had no clue. No clue. So obviously I was just constantly blaming myself, and it's like, well, it's because I turned into a fucking monster. Well, it's because I was attacking him. Well, it's because I was just constantly blaming myself. And but I stayed in therapy, you know, because I obviously believed that I was a problem. And eventually this should have been the sign for me to be, I think we should end things up. It's when October 2020 came around and our lease was up, and he he opted to go live with his parents upstate, and I was left to my own devices. So I had to figure out where to live without him, you know? And still under the impression of, he kept telling me, this is just temporary, this is just temporary. Sorry, I need to go live with my parents. And I had to figure out where to live on myself. Still in hopes of that we were going to come back eventually, that this was temporary. And me just giving him his space because he was still undecided.
Mm.
He still didn't know what he wanted, you know? After that big fight and break that happened, he still was in that position of like, I don't know what I want. So I gave him that space. I'm like, okay, you go live with your parents. I will live by myself. And so we were apart until like April 2021, this past year. The last time I saw him, he brought over a bunch of personal documents that he was storing, you know, which like, I don't know, birth certificate, social security card, stuff, important stuff that he was keeping, you know. And I remember I told him, why did you bring over, you know, all of my things? He's like, oh no, well, just in case you need them. I'm like, but I don't need them. You're storing all of our important paperwork. No, well, I mean, if you don't need them, eventually I'll just take them back. And I'm like, okay, sure. So it was literally the bare minimum. Since we lost our apartment, I would see him once a week or every 2 weeks, you know, like he would come down to the city and we would hang out for a while, and then he would leave, you know. Sometimes 2 weeks would go by and then I would see him one day. So it was that until that day when he brought my things, and 3 days after, he broke up with me over the phone. Simply saying, I'm very depressed and I can't do this anymore. And so I was still, in a way, kind of like, what happened, you know? What happened? Like, and of course I called my family and it's like, what does that mean? That's like, he can't, like, that he's depressed, that he can't do this anymore. And I'm like, I just don't know what to do anymore. It's like, it's done. I think it's finally done. And then it's when all of the clicks started happening, you know, when I'm like, oh, this is why, this is what happened. Eventually he just, that same weekend when he broke up with me, he was already in a flight to LA to go see this guy. And then the next week they went to Puerto Vallarta together. And it's just been this way of, I guess for him, how to cope with what happened, you know? They've just been together traveling nonstop ever since it happened. But I was never told that it was because of that reason. So it was very hard for me to assimilate and be like, oh, this is what was happening. Now it makes sense, of course.
So his depression went away when he was traveling, I assume, or?
I mean, if that was his way of coping with breaking a relationship, that's his choice, you know? But I guess the tough part is that I just blamed myself for so long.
Well, I was going to get back to your feelings of like suicidal thoughts, right?
Yeah.
At what point you don't feel that way anymore, correct?
No,
like
not at all.
Okay.
No, thank God. Thank God for therapy.
But it was the idea that something went wrong in your relationship and that you might have been the cause of it that led to that.
That led to that.
Well, that's very selfish of this man. Unfortunately, because now how you found out how everything was, I can't even begin to imagine.
It was extremely tough, and obviously, I mean, not even the aspect of like wanting to take away my own life, you know, but it's the fact that there was no reason for this to be this messy, you know?
Yeah.
Because there were many occasions where I, you know, try to open up communication, and I'm like, what do you think went wrong? Were you having an affair? what's happening. There were many occasions where, like, not even in a fighting way, I was trying to have this conversation with him. There were many missed opportunities where he would have just simply said, this is what's happening. And, maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he was still making up his mind. Maybe he didn't, necessarily know if he wanted to be 100% with this guy or not. I can give him that.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that even while you don't know, it's always good to keep, especially after a 6-year relationship.
Correct.
Would you have responded so, outside of defending your marriage and your relationship, would you have been so fiery or volatile that he could not tell you, hey, I've been with this person, traveling with him, and I'm starting to get feelings and I don't know what to do? If he said that to you, would you have been so?
I would have understand, obviously 100%, and would have preferred that over being put as was all because of you and because of the lack of intimacy in the relationship, And I could only do so much. What I can take from what happened is I did my very best to save our marriage,
Mm-hmm.
I sought counseling for us. I stayed in therapy for us. I gave him his space. I know what I did from my part, and I fought till the very end. And that's what I can take from this experience, that I didn't give up. I didn't give up. And now it's kind of tough because now he's in the same industry that I am. He's also doing porn now with his new man as well.
Your ex-husband.
Correct.
Okay. You had mentioned briefly, I thought it was just the guy that he was with.
No, the other guy has been in the industry for a while, and but now obviously my man is also doing it as well.
Interesting.
Ex-man, sorry.
Do you think before we get into, I do want to talk a little bit about the healing process, right?
Correct.
Like where you are in it, but also like the steps you took, because I think it's important for other people who might be feeling that way too.
Yeah, we're going through the same thing.
But do you think there was any kind of envy?
I'm not really sure.
Why would all of a sudden now, why would he start doing porn?
Well, maybe because I honestly don't know. I can't be in his head, but maybe I think it has to do a lot with his current partner, that's also in the same industry. And maybe they saw an opportunity to do this together, and team up. And but I remember the reason that he told me when we were still in kind of like good talking terms. He just said, it's just money is really scarce right now, and this is an opportunity that I saw, and I hope that you can understand. And I'm like, you don't have to give me reasons of why you started an OnlyFans, It's like, go for it. If you think you're low in money and you need it, I understand. Who am I to tell you, don't start an OnlyFans, This was still before I didn't know that he was
with this other
guy.
Okay.
Correct. But of course, when then I found out, I'm like, of course it makes sense, And that's okay, if that's what he wants to do, and if he's happy doing it, that's okay. But also in a way that was like a weight lift off my shoulders. Yeah. I'm like, it was not you.
It wasn't you.
And also, it was not porn. It was not the career, because I did think for a brief moment, maybe it's because I'm a porn star, But clearly, that's not the issue. For him, being with a porn star, it's not the issue. So there were so many, things being lifted off my shoulder that was very healing. And obviously, just talking about my experience and being vulnerable with people, just because I stayed silent for so long, And therapy has been probably the main healing factor for me, that's been so helpful.
So sleuthing, right? Finding all of this stuff out, because he didn't tell you. Still to this day.
Still to this day.
He has not said, hey, this is why.
Still to this day.
It's fucked up. um, sleuthing, figuring it all out
Mm-hmm.
is a good way to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was part of the process because now you're not blaming yourself for this.
Correct.
Therapy,
Correct.
family,
Family,
family and friends.
and being vulnerable. Again, I was living in shame and fear for so long, and I still remember, the last, because when he broke up with me over FaceTime, I remember he said, "Don't say anything to anybody. It's nobody's business. Nobody has to know." And I'm like, "But we were together for 6 years. It's like people are gonna notice." I was already getting messages from like, "What's going on? Are you guys still together? We don't see pictures of you anymore." Or I saw him with so and so. I felt like I was on the receiving end of that. It's just been very healing to be able to talk about this openly without feeling so much shame, you
Yeah.
know? And again, not to victimize myself, but just to like, this is my experience,
Mhm.
And maybe it can help somebody out there realize, when they're falling into this sort of like,
Yeah.
chaos, if you want to talk.
The word victim gets thrown around way too easily.
Yeah.
And for purposes that are, everybody will call someone a victim, and I don't consider it victimhood. Everybody has experiences like this, and whether you want to talk about them or
Correct.
not, it's your decision. I think it's stronger to talk about them because you can only go
Yeah.
one way from there.
And again, this is obviously just my side of the story,
Mhm.
and I can only acknowledge my wrongdoings so much, in the relationship. I can acknowledge how tough maybe it was for him. But like I say, what I can take from this is what I did to try to make this work. So, I went into fighting mode, seeked couples therapy. I was talking to friends. I stayed in therapy. I gave him his space. I gave him time. All of this, I can take with me, and be like, Alessio, you did what you could with the information that you had at that
Yeah.
moment. You did your very best.
That's a very good way to look at it. The information that was given to you
Mm-hmm.
was how you reacted to it.
Correct.
I was going to say I was thinking of there was pitta, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you practice yoga,
Mm-hmm.
and pitta is like fiery.
Yes.
But because I think of that when you say you were angry, but you weren't. You were just, it was built up. You
Of course.
you needed something to say.
Of course. And now I look back and I'm like, of course, there was a lack of intimacy, which is different from sex
Mhm.
for me. There was a
Mhm.
lack of intimacy, of course, because he was just so closed off and I obviously was exploding the entire time. There were so many elements that were, not contributing to a good communication.
On top of the whole pandemic,
Of course,
keeping
on top
everybody
of that, of course, trying to
shut
stay
down.
alive
Yeah.
and not get sick and try to figure out what you want to do for work and all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on top of all of that, It's so it was difficult, but yeah, that's it's been a rough 2 years.
Where are you now?
I'm in a much better place
Okay.
right now, obviously. I've had incredible, unbelievable support from family, obviously, friends. I've recently had expanded a new group of friends as well, and I'm like, I didn't
That's
believe
cool.
that was like that. It was going to be that easy to make, friends and new friends here in the city. But it's been very healing, and obviously, also getting to have the opportunity whenever I can to talk about these things. It's been very good. I'm in a
Good.
better place.
Good.
Yeah.
I enjoy having these conversations because we are human. You are human.
Yeah.
You do things that a lot of humans probably can't do.
Correct.
The things I've seen you take. But yeah, you still have
Yes.
feelings, all of them.
Correct. And it's all of us, everybody in this industry. It's
Mhm.
just and everybody does in a way what we do. We just
Yeah.
choose to do it in front of a camera. And and like I said, I just saw a business opportunity out of it. And I'm like, if I can make some money out of it, then why not?
Yeah. I've more and more every year become comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
the idea of the sex industry, the porn industry, because
Yeah.
of if this is the way you're paying your rent,
Yeah.
and you're making a living, no one has any right to judge.
Yeah, of course.
And if and you're good, you're healthy, you're sane,
Yeah, and as long as you're not hurting anybody else,
Yeah.
it's like why not do it?
Yeah.
It obviously is difficult because you're putting it out there.
Yeah.
To
But
the
you're
world to
make
see.
the fantasy happen for other people.
Yes.
And speaking of fantasy,
Uh-huh.
what are we gonna do today?
Oh my God, I am so excited. We're recording. We're filming old school gangbang, Treasure
Yeah.
Island Media gangbang, and I am so excited.
Yeah, I've yet to do one for Treasure
Really?
Island. No, I have
Oh
not.
my God. Okay.
So this is gonna be my first for Treasure Island.
Okay.
And I was like, who can do it? Who can do it? Who do I want to see do it? And I was like, that's why I hit you up. And I was like, what do you feel about this and that? You're like, oh, the more the merrier. Amazing.
Of course. Oh my
Yeah.
God, 100%.
So-
That is completely my
Yeah,
fantasy.
I am looking forward to that. I know that you did one on Just for Fans or Only Fans?
Just for fans,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
I think mostly people know me for that. I was very surprised with the amount of people that showed up for that gangbang. But it was a total of 48 loads.
Wow, that's amazing. It's
Yeah.
not going to be that many this time, but
Well, who knows?
we will have fun. Yeah, we will
Yeah.
have a lot of fun.
I can't wait.
You're welcome on anytime. You know, I love
Thank
talking to you.
I love talking to you too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's something about, like, I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely the Latin part too. I fucking-
Right? I was going to say,
I
I,
have
think it's
a
a
kid-
Hispanic
like
thing.
the minute, the minute
Uh-huh.
you like when I meet Latin models, I already feel like home almost.
Yeah,
and it's
100%.
because we can say stuff in Spanish sometimes, even if it's mixed in with English and all that
Yes,
shit. You can make fun of my Spanish. I know you speak better
No,
Spanish.
well,
So you can make fun of it. It's perfectly fine. I'm not to say that I'm not like that with all models, but
Mhm.
there's always a familiarity with Latin models and Spanish models that
Mhm.
I don't get initially with a lot of people.
yeah.
And you're a genuinely nice person.
Oh, thank you.
So
I appreciate
do.
that.
Yeah. Well.
I strive to be.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's all we can all do, right?
What? Yeah, for sure, 100%.
When people want to find your stuff.
Oh, just go to my Twitter is Alessio Vega XXX, and you will find all of my information there. I mean, I can give you Instagram and all of that, but the names are different. So
Okay.
just go to my Twitter, Alessio Vega XXX, and you'll see a link tree there that has all of my stuff.
Linktree. I got to do that.
Yeah.
That's my next step.
Yeah.
For me, guys, the Demystifying Gay Porn is on every single podcast directory. You can watch it on YouTube, where this video will go up. I'm doing a live Q&A on Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure yet. I think probably Thursday. And it's going to be on Mixcloud. Only because the Q&As that I've done before,
Mm-hmm.
they're fine, but I sit there for an hour, and it takes a little while for questions to come in. So I was like, what's a better way for me to do this? And I'm not selling Mixcloud. They're not paying me for anything.
Uh-huh.
No one's paying me for anything yet.
Of course.
But Mixcloud, I can put. I kind of wanted to do like a radio hour,
Okay.
like a radio station.
Got it. Yeah. That's
So
cool.
I'm going to play music, and Mixcloud is the only place where you can play music, and they actually pay out royalties to the artist that you're playing.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'm not a DJ. I'm one of those talentless people that play other people's music.
Got
Not like Avicii or anything like that. I
Yeah.
don't make my own music, but I figured it would be a lot of fun to do like a music hour, and then while
Yeah.
questions are coming in, I'll take a break in between, answer like 10 questions, and then go
that
back to
sounds
the music.
amazing. Yeah, do that.
So Mixcloud, I'll let you guys know when. But once again, Alessio Vega, this is our internationally known porn star. Soon to be internet. You gotta get out. You gotta get out of the country.
I
man.
know.
People,
I need to embrace that.
all those
much
European
more.
studios
Yeah.
will love you.
I need to embrace that.
Yeah.
Now that I'm in a better place, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna start
Do it.
embracing the inner hoe.
What's I don't even. It's always the world your limit at this point, but the universe is your limit at this point.
Yeah,
the
for
metaverse,
sure.
the universe,
Yeah,
everything.
100%. Yeah, I think I just need to embrace the inner hoe now that I'm in a better place. Obviously single, and yeah, just like go at it.
We're gonna embrace your inner hoe today.
Yes, can't wait.
All right, guys. Demystifying Gay Porn. My name is Ike Grande, and if you watch gay porn, I've definitely helped you get off. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye.